This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time!
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah!
I finished these fights.
Give me a hell yeah!
Top Rope Nation.
Learn to love it. It's the best thing going today.
What's up, guys? Episode 188 of Top Rope Nation. Real special episode for you here tonight. A little talking off air right as I was going on. So trying to be a professional and get this straight. My name's Ryan Drosty of comicbook.com, joined by Mr. Kyle Ross and Justin Joint tonight, as I am each and every week to talk professional wrestling. A lot of times we're talking current pro wrestling, but this week we're actually going to go a little retro on you. It doesn't feel like this was that long ago to me, guys, but we're going back to 2012. We're going to be discussing the match at TLC 2012 between The Shield and Kane, Daniel Bryan, and Ryback, which really was kind of, when you look back, an industry-changing match. And Kyle, you came up with the idea to do this week, and so as we get underway here in just a few minutes, I'm going to have you kind of run in the point guard position as we go through the show. But before we get to that, Kyle Ross, you were just talking about some tequila off air. You just bought a gigantic bottle of tequila. How's your week going?
I did. I'll tell you what, that bottle of tequila is still unopened, so that should probably tell you a lot about how this week's going.
So it could be going better, is what you're saying.
It could be going worse, could be going better. Just a tough grind, man. Like I wrote on the Facebook page, it's a busy time of the year in the sports handicapping world. Last thing I wanted was the NBA starting next Tuesday.
Yeah,
Why?
it is. This is the crazy time of the year for you. So
yes, but I am ready to talk this match, one of the finest of the decade from the fine folks at WWE.
Kind of ironic that, this is the busiest time of the year for you, but you are jacked to talk about this show. I mean, you're excited. You're busy. You've been running around with your head caught off, doing work, doing pro wrestling, trying to keep up with pro wrestling. But, you were texting us. You were writing in the Facebook group that you were ready to go. So I am looking forward to getting your takes on this one.
Oh, the notes are strong.
Yes.
The notes are real strong.
Justin Joint, what's going on over there across town for me?
Not a lot. Not to make light of a very serious situation in the world, but I thought I was coming down with the corona earlier this week. So I had the body aches and I was tired Monday and Tuesday. And Tuesday I realized that I had chopped wood all Sunday morning and I hadn't done jack shit the previous 8 months of the year. So it was just exercise soreness.
Oh, Justin the Axeman Joint, doing work.
The X-Man.
I like it.
Well, hey, I'm glad you're fine, and we're looking forward to the show tonight. And if you are joining, I do want to say, if you guys are joining us here on YouTube.com and you're watching the show after the fact, YouTube.com/TopRopeNation. A little reminder, we're going to be going live this Sunday night after WWE TLC. So if you're watching the show here, if you're watching the show here on YouTube right now, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the show. Our pay-per-view post shows are a lot of fun. Like I said, you can join us live. If you're listening to the podcast feed, we would love to have you guys tune in live on Sunday night to the YouTube show. So go subscribe to the channel so you don't forget, youtube.com/TopRopeNation. Of course, we are actually streaming live tonight, as we do each and every week, exclusively for patrons as we record the flagship show. Head on over to patreon.com/TopRopeNation, where you can find out how you can support the show, get access to those weekly live casts. Essentially, you're getting the show, a day before the general public. And you can also check out how you can get access to our bonus content like Top Rope Nation Classics, a bonus podcast we do exclusively for patrons, as well as a free gift for signing up. We'd be honored to have your support. It's the best way to support what we are doing. If Patreon's not for you, another way you can help the show is if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, hit that subscribe button. Leave us a 5-star rating while you're there, especially on Apple Podcasts. If you leave us a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts, leave your Twitter or Instagram username so I can get a hold of you, and I'll send you a free Top Rope Nation sticker in the mail for just taking a couple of minutes to help the show out. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And we got Justin and Kyle doing the sign language here on the show. 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. Dude, what was the slogan? Tap the 5 stars that we talked about last week. Tap those 5 stars.
There was something about tap that ass. I don't know what it was.
Whatever you got to do, guys.
Obviously, it wasn't an effective catchphrase because I forgot it a week later.
Tap it fast, tap it slow, tap the 5 star. I think it was something like that. And of course, we are brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcasting Network. Shout out to those guys. Check out BlueWirePods.com for all the entire network of shows. And later in the show, you'll be hearing from our sponsors, the good folks over at BetOnline and Indeed.com. So, Kyle, I mentioned at the top of the show, it was kind of your idea to go through this match, not the whole show, but this match from TLC 2012. Why don't you explain to the listeners why you chose this one?
Well, it's December. We have a TLC pay-per-view coming up, but wouldn't you know it, as we record this show for our palatial homes, it is 8 years to the date that this match occurred. What a coincidence. I did not plan it that way, but sure worked out nice. And besides that, I just really wanted to prove I could say nice stuff about the World Wrestling Federation after last week.
Yeah.
I mean, dear God, imagine if we had to review this week's television offerings from Titan Sports.
Even AEW wasn't that great this week. I know we've been really high on AEW.
No, it was a weaker one. Going in, I kind of expected it, but God bless you having to review SmackDown Live every week. I thought the promos on that 2-hour telecast last Friday, that would have been, we're recording this December 17th, 2020. So whatever the last Friday was, whatever you folks listen to this. I thought it took promos to a new nadir in the history of this great.
It was not a great show. I mean, I tune in obviously to get paid working for CBS comicbook.com, but pretty much for Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens, who I spoke to earlier today on the phone. Had a great chat with Kevin Owens, you guys. So check out comicbook.com this weekend. I'll have a couple articles spun out from my conversation with Mr. Kevin Owens. That was a lot of fun, but Kevin was not in the WWE yet at TLC 2012, but of course Roman Reigns was. And,
he was, and wouldn't you know, we're going to talk about his in-ring debut tonight.
Yes, we are.
So you want me to give the background?
Yeah, I was going to say, so like where are we going to start? Because we've done this one other time where we did kind of these retrospective podcasts on a particular match. I think it was back in August. We looked at the 15-year anniversary of Hulk Hogan and Shawn Michaels from SummerSlam 05. And I told you guys off air last week, that's one of our top 10 most downloaded shows this year. So we probably shouldn't have taken this long to do another one of them, but this should be a lot of fun. So yeah, the retrospective, give us the background, Kyle.
Okay. So those of you who may have forgotten, the Shield made their debut at the 2012 Survivor Series, helping CM Punk, remember him, retain the WWE title in a triple threat against Ryback, more on him later, and John Cena. And here is what our old friend Dave Meltzer wrote in his review of Survivor Series 2012. Ambrose and Rollins have been ready for more than a year. Reigns was considered to have as much potential as anyone in developmental because of his size, look, and athletic ability, but it may be early as he's still shaky on promos. Rollins isn't great either, but Ambrose is very good, and not there yet in the ring. In referring to Reigns. Of course, the company has introduced plenty of new people with pushes and given up on most, which is why they have such little depth. Then he goes on to give kind of the backgrounds, Ambrose, John Good, Heartland Championship Wrestling, shot to the top of FCW, Rollins, he puts over the matches he had in NXT, and that he was, what does he say about him? He was NXT champion as of the last tapings and consistently had the best matches of anyone in developmental.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting to look at the background of these three guys because, as you said, now Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose, Jon Moxley before that, he had been wrestling for 5-6 years before signing with WWE, and by 2012 he had about 8 years in the business. And Rollins had about the same. So, those two guys had a lot of experience. Of course, Rollins, Tyler Black on the independent scene. But Reigns didn't even start wrestling in 2010. Until 2010. So he was very, very green. But this is a huge moment for all the guys coming in, their first main roster match. And I don't know about you guys, but when I watched him come out in the entrance, I could see some nerves, especially in Seth Rollins. I could see it in his face a little bit that you could tell he was kind of taken with the moment, I think.
I mean, doing your first match in that kind of spot is quite the ask. And we'll
Yes.
get into, all the political machinations that were going on in a little bit.
Another
Not
thing
only
that's... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, not only their first match, but the first live show in the Barclays, the new Brooklyn Barclays Center.
Yeah.
That's right, yes.
Which would become kind of a regular stop for WWE pre-pandemic. A lot of big shows at that venue. I was also going to say that, Daniel Bryan in this match, he had worked multiple times with Tyler Black and Jon Moxley on the independent scene. I looked up some of those matches earlier today. So they were no strangers, but of course never on a stage this big.
Was that not a deep dive that you gave out?
I think I did at one point, maybe a year or so ago.
Bryan Danielson, Tyler Black match from Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
I really like that match.
They also had a three-way with Kenny Omega.
That's right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he was big deal. Then, with Reigns, and I'm going to ask you guys if you remember something. You may or may not after this, but, Reigns, Meltzer goes over his background. He grew up using his middle name. Older brother Matt was Rosie, and, Reigns is a college football star at Georgia Tech, all ACC as a senior in 2006, played football at 310 pounds, but is trimmed down to 260 as a wrestler, was not drafted, but had brief stints in camp with the Minnesota Vikings and ended up on the practice roster with the Jags. Tony Khan, Jacksonville Jaguars, 2007. Played a few games in 2008 with the Edmonton Eskimos of the CFL, but his career ended after that season, as you mentioned. Signed with WWE in 2010, Ryan, and unlike the other two, he was starting from scratch.
Yeah.
But
310, man. Big boy.
Here's the thing. Do you guys remember who CM Punk proposed be the third member of the Shield? It was not Roman Reigns.
Yeah,
Chris
I was
Hero.
thinking about this.
Yes.
Was I?
Yes.
Yeah. I
Yes,
had
it
that in my head
absolutely
earlier
was.
today, and I couldn't remember who it was. Yeah. There it is.
This will probably upset some. I love Chris Hero, for the record. I love Cassius Ohno. I don't think WWE did nearly enough with him either time they had him. You talk about some of the great early NXT matches, him and William Regal. Check out those TV bouts from 2013 on the network. That said, I think Reigns was a better option here. I actually like the dynamic of, you have the two guys who came through the indie scene and then their project. Because the goal of this group was eventually to, split them all up and have Reigns be the big single star. So I actually liked that dynamic. Some people may disagree, but it's just the way I feel.
And not only that, which I agree with you, but Chris Hero wouldn't have looked right in that part either.
No, I don't think he would have. I think Reigns was perfect as kind of the big muscle of the group. He was different, and I'm going to get into later just the whole deal with individuality and the Shield. But yeah.
I do kind of wish we could have seen like the military vest with just the short trunks on Chris Hero. That would have been interesting.
Yes.
Damn it. Hey, you don't want to see me in short trunks, I'll tell you that.
So you're talking in the notes here, Kyle, about how the Shield debuted about 2.5 years after Nexus. Did you want to hit on this a little bit?
Okay, so Nexus, interesting because Ryan Reeves was in that group. You know him as Ryback, and he was in this match. But I always thought Nexus was a great idea, but probably with the wrong people. I mean, imagine if, like, in the, a couple of years ago, if they'd done a Nexus with the current NXT roster. If they'd done that same angle, but with, modern NXT. I think it would have been a better shot at succeeding. But, the Shield obviously succeeded where Nexus didn't. Mm-hmm. And I had a question for you guys. First off, looking at the current NXT, who, if anyone, could make up a modern day Shield? Not that WWE should do such a thing, but who do you think, if they were to pluck 3 guys from NXT and put them in a group, a Shield-like group, who do you think would work in that role?
Well, I have prepared my notes for this, Kyle, as you guys can see on the video stream.
Oh,
Karnak here, and
pardon me.
We're really old. Throw out that reference.
Karnak, I was going to say, half our audience didn't get that.
They're like, Karnak, what are you talking about? As I put the envelope on my head.
No, I know how kids who watch Berman feel.
Oh man. Anyways, Johnny Carson, look it up, guys.
Yes.
So I was thinking about this, and when you look at the Shield, okay, they kind of have the roles of one guy's the muscle, one guy's the worker, and one. Not that John Moxley wasn't a worker, but he was definitely like the personality in the group. You know, like a little crazy,
Especially early on.
Yeah. So when I thought I was trying to. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I remember when he first came up through NXT and the main roster, all the buzz was he's the next Roddy Piper.
Yep, heard that all the time, like every week. It seemed like. So yeah, I mean that's the kind of the profiles I had in my head as I was trying to, who would I pick? And
It's fair.
So here's who I got. See what you think. So for the muscle on a new Shield from the current NXT roster, he's muscular. He's bigger though. Damian Priest. All right, I have Damian Priest in the Roman Reigns role.
He sounds a lot like Roman Reigns, doesn't he? Like if you were Roman Reigns, would you not want Damian Priest on your show?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I think
I
he
feel like him and
so
Reigns
much
could
like
have some kick-ass matches though.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's kind of funny, but it's funny you just mentioned Damian Priest because in that role, because when I see him, I kind of think about Roman Reigns.
Yeah,
so that's actually a very good choice.
Yeah. So Damian Priest is the muscle. For the personality, kind of a little bit crazy, Tommaso Ciampa. And for the worker, Pete Dunne. Damian Priest, Ciampa, Pete Dunne. What do you guys think of that?
It's definitely three different personalities.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it definitely doesn't have the same kind of oomph that the original trio did. When the question was originally posted, Damian Priest was kind of the first and only name that I could come up with.
Mm-hmm. Well, my initial reaction to this question when I saw Kyle had it here in our notes was, so for the worker, I was thinking about Gargano, but then I was like, no, Gargano couldn't pull this off because I'm thinking of like a heelish group, and we've been so down on him in the current heel run. I couldn't put him in there, but he kind of came to my mind, in the Seth Rollins role.
And when it comes to the Rollins and Moxley roles, I think a big part of their appeal was they had so much buzz from being on the independents.
Yeah.
Which made it that much more exciting when they came up. And I don't know if there's really anybody down there that's like that now, that carries that same kind of buzz.
Well, the problem is the current state of NXT. Like, if we would have asked this question 2-3 years ago, I think it would have been a lot more fun to answer when NXT was really rolling.
Agreed. Yeah.
And you didn't have just, a third stale brand within WWE. Sorry, folks. I know I said I wouldn't talk bad about the company, but I just couldn't help myself.
It's a weekly occurrence.
Yes.
At this moment in time, at least.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought, it was interesting. And going back to the Nexus thing, I wanted to ask a second question here before we really get going on the pay-per-view proper. Nexus clearly was not pushed well. The decision to beat them at SummerSlam 2010, I just don't know what to say. It was real bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was bad. How do you do that? How do you do a big group and have them lose in their first match? What are you doing? Anyway, do you think the Shield got more over because of their ability individually, collectively, or how they were pushed? Because they, unlike Nexus, and that's why I wanted to keep bringing them up, they were pushed strong out of the gate, or was it a little of both, talent and push?
I think it was most certainly both. Because kind of like what I just said about the buzz with Rollins and Moxley. I don't know if any of the Nexus guys really had that. And even looking at them in the moment, outside of Barrett and Daniel Bryan, I don't know how much long-term viability there was, and at the very least their believability as a monster group.
Yeah, that's, it goes back to what I said earlier, great idea, probably wrong people.
Yeah.
With that.
I mean, I think it's the presentation. I think it's bringing them in as, the supposed mercenaries of CM Punk, though he would deny it, for months. And eventually they had the handicap match with him the next year at TLC.
That's right.
But, I think the association with Punk was a big part of it. Their ability, their look, I think the presentation, I mean, the outfits were unique with the tactical gear and stuff. The way they came through the crowd, the theme song was really good. I think it was just the whole package put together. I don't think that I can really point to one thing, but I know that just the presentation as characters really blew me away, kind of from the start.
Yeah, I look, they're all talented. I just think the push, as we'll get into when we get to the match, was so key. I mean, WWE doesn't do this for a lot of new acts in the modern era. It's always, pay your dues. And in this case, there were some factors that I think necessitated a really strong push. But, there just aren't a lot of new acts that can push like this in WWE. I remember Kevin Owens, first night beats John Cena.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But what happened the next time they wrestled? He lost.
Yeah.
And what happened the third time they wrestled? He lost.
Mm-hmm.
It's no surprise the Shield is fondly remembered because they were booked like a main event act from the start, which you just don't see enough.
The one thing I will say about their presentation, I think it's pretty lame that they just used Roman Reigns' theme and just didn't come up with their own Shield theme.
Yeah, how dare they?
We'll talk about that breakup in a little bit. Hopefully we have enough time to get into that because I've got some heavy thoughts on how this group was broken up.
Kyle, so what was the originally planned main event for this show?
For this pay-per-view, it was going to be Punk and Ryback again in the TLC match, but that got nixed due to Punk's injury.
We missed it.
Yes. Well,
that's too bad.
Hold on. We're going to talk about something in a little bit here. It's going to maybe make you view the big guy a little bit more fondly. But
doubt it.
Anyway, that was going to be the main event, but Punk got hurt. You see, in the promo, that's, a
fantastic
shoot,
promo, by the way.
Yes.
CM Punk right before this match.
And the Shield was going to probably work Team Hell No and another partner is what Meltzer said anyway. But with the Punk injury, Ryback became Team Hell No's partner. And this was, pretty much given headline status on the show. It doesn't go on last though, right?
No,
because isn't it like Cena and Ziggler?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's when AJ turns on John Cena, quote unquote turns.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Okay. So yeah, that was the plan. So this match wasn't even really supposed to happen originally, which is always just so fascinating to me. Just like Brett and Austin, WrestleMania 13, wasn't the plan. They wound up producing magic and turning the company around. Not saying this is on that level, but a happy accident, if you will.
So, you just hinted at it. Should we talk about Ryback at this point and what we thought of him and his push at the time?
Yes.
Because we were talking about this off air a little bit, and as you
feed me more.
As Justin just alluded to, he wasn't a big fan of Ryback. I can't say that I was either. Kyle, you were not at the time, but you've kind of come around on the big guy, it sounds like.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I just, I'm looking at the facts, and this was discussed for months after. The Hell in a Cell pay-per-view headlined with him and Punk. Remember, pay-per-view, there was no WWE Network yet at this time, folks. Did surprisingly well on pay-per-view. And there was the argument at the time that maybe Ryback should have won at Hell in a Cell. And, he could have just lost it back to Punk. But the issue was, for those of you keeping score, remember this time period, Punk was already locked into losing the belt to The Rock at the Royal Rumble. And I guess they just didn't want to do so many title changes in a short period of time. Punk, obviously, his gimmick at this point was longest reigning WWE champion and, however long.
The modern era, he would always say.
Yeah, the modern era. So, yeah, they didn't want him to lose. But, Ryback, I'm not saying, he's the greatest wrestler of all time, but he was popular during this point. A little bit. This is definitely the peak of Ryback.
I would have never considered putting the world title on him at all during that time. He did have, the crowd would scream the feed me more thing. That was definitely over. But a huge section of the crowd would also always chant Goldberg at him because he just seemed like such a ripoff of Goldberg. I mean, his mannerisms, his facial reactions. I just always looked at him as a cheap Goldberg ripoff. I'm sorry, Ryback.
Should they have done that match?
They should have. I mean, people wanted to see it. If they could have done it, I think so. Absolutely. But I mean, I think
Goldberg and Ryback.
Yeah, yeah. I think Goldberg though. I think the Goldberg chants. I mean, that was derogatory at Ryback, and so.
Oh, you do.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think they were taunting him by chanting that. So.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I could not have put I wouldn't have considered, especially with Punk in the middle of that kind of legendary reign that he had during that time period, the longest reigning champ and all that. You couldn't do it. Kyle, you mentioned he's kind of slated to lose to The Rock, and course, the Shield got involved in that match at the Rumble.
They did.
In early 2013. So, yeah, I mean, I thought we should kind of discuss where we were on Ryback, because you see him come out, and yeah, he does get a nice reaction from the crowd, I thought, although in the Observer, Meltzer talks about how Bryan got a big reaction from the crowd and that they didn't do much for Ryback, and I was kind of wondering what he was talking about, because I thought he got a good reaction when he came out, but...
Yeah. Oh, there we go. I don't know. Political hit job in the Observer. The internet has the scoops, according to Hulk Hogan at Wrestle War 95.
We're all, yeah.
World War 395, pardon me.
So we're all big Bryan fans on the show. Anyone who has listened to this knows we're all big Daniel Bryan fans. So what did you guys make of Team Hell No at the time? Justin?
I thought they were entertaining. I've never been a big Kane fan. And I don't know, some of it's hard to look at with knowing where it all ended up for Daniel Bryan, to really know what I felt at the moment. But I think I was just kind of like, this is a decent use for them. They're a good comedy duo, but it just feels like they're missing the boat on Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
You know what I'm not a fan of? Mayor Glenn Jacobs.
I was just going to say Kane's politics, probably.
I mean, this guy, it's back to social studies for you, pal. I mean, this guy reeks. This guy got like one of the worst executives I've ever seen in my entire life of him.
Ooh, that's saying something. I'm not going to go down that road because I'll be talking for a while. But
okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you.
I love what Justin said, how he said he was never a Kane fan, because I generally am not either. I know that he's a pretty good working big man. People give him credit. He deserves some due in that regard. I just think it was insane he was still around in 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you would have told me when that character debuted 15 years later, he'll be, in a big time matchup every year, but what? But I will say this again, Justin alluded to it. I thought Team Hell No was kind of the best thing he did in the 2000s.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of competition for me.
Yeah,
but...
I mean, that's part of the... I mean, it's not like, oh, let me tell you about this other good Kane thing. But, yeah, I thought it was good. And it elevated Daniel Bryan. Because the funny thing is, and they talk about this very much, he's a former world champion. But that was like a fluke world title run that they didn't really push very hard. I mean, He was not pushed as a serious, strong world champion when he was a heel. He was the Sheamus in the infamous opener at WrestleMania 28. But... I think Team Hell No did very much elevate Daniel Bryan in a lot of fans' eyes. People who had not followed his career pre-WWE.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into the match itself now. TLC 2012. Match goes a little over 20 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. Justin, you noted as you watched this back that felt shorter to you. I watched it twice to get ready for the show. I don't think I had seen it since 2012. But Kyle, I mean, this one ranks really highly for you on your tier of 2000s WWE matches. I mean, take it away. What do you think?
2010s, I'll say.
2010s, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to make a comment right now. I think the best match of the decade, 2010s WWF main roster, not including NXT, would be Cena Punk. I think a lot of people would say that, right? Money in the Bank in Chicago. This is absolutely in the conversation for number 2. I mean, that's how strong I feel. I think it is a flawless match. I could go the full 5 on this baby, and I don't do that very often. Yeah.
Meltzer gave a 4.5. I think if you go on Cage Match, it's right around 9 out of 10 aggregate score from
which is about 4.5. Yes, I mean, a little higher, a little bit higher, but yeah,
for sure. Yeah, for sure in the discussion.
I really think it is. I just don't know how you do this match better. We'll get into that later on. The nuance of the match. It was total chaos throughout. It was very different than really any WWE match at the time. Now, it was interesting to watch it, after just seeing a takeover, because it brought to mind a quote you made on last week's show, Ryan. When you said it on last week's show, I noted it because I knew what we were talking about this week. I was like, I think that's going to apply if I remember, and it absolutely does. So we were talking about the War Games matches, if you guys remember. Ryan, you astutely pointed out how the action often feels inorganic in those matches, like with just people laying around, and then it's time to do their spot, and they just come in, and it just doesn't feel like a real fight. This felt like a real fight. Even if people were, taken a spill outside and just, weren't involved in the action, it was because something happened to them. They weren't laying around being lost. I just felt the constant flow of action in this match really stood out and kind of illuminated that quote you had last week.
Yeah, like I think it's Kane that takes the spear through the ringside barrier, and they like kind of like bury him under a bunch of stuff. So like it makes sense that you don't see him, right?
Yeah.
It's not like a singular move in the ring and he just lays there and watches everyone work. Yeah, you're right. I mean, chaos right from the start. In fact, during the Shield entrance, when the guys you're coming down to the ring, you had Rollins and Ambrose come down one set of stairs, and Reigns comes down like the next section over, because they attacked the ring like from different directions. And I think it was Reigns working with Kane right off the start, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I mean, just they brawl all over the outside of the ring. The crowd's really into it. It's a hot start to the match, and of course there's a lot of big spots throughout the match. It's, you can't get away from that in this TLC match. But yeah. So I guess just general thoughts as we get into it, Justin. When you watch this one back, what were some of your takeaways?
Well, this would be more for you and me than Kyle, but I was thrown off by Reigns for like the first few minutes. And I realized later on that it was, he's the tattoos,
less
not
tattoos,
fully complete
yeah.
yet. He's
I noted
wearing
that too. That's hilarious.
no wrist guard, no wrist tape or anything. It's just bare arms. Mm-hmm. So that took some getting used to. I noticed the Goldberg chants right away. But to Kyle's point, when Ryback made the comeback after going through the table, the crowd was pretty 100% behind him, which kind of broke my heart a little bit, but whatevs. And, for me, who never, my mutant power is blocking out commentary, I don't even know what he was referring to, but at the I don't know if I think it was before the match started, JBL was talking about the Knights Templar burying their treasure on Oak Island, which I thought was that just because there's that History Channel show now about Oak Island.
Yeah.
JBL was in a weird period with his commentary during your, you talk about hit or miss.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something Ryan was just mentioning with the start of the match. And, normally the camera cutting in WWE production when you watch the matches is pretty nauseating, and I think is a detriment to the viewing experience. But it actually worked in this situation because there was so much action going on. You had all 6 people fighting at once. The only thing I could, think of another match that came to mind was like the Cactus and Friends against the Nasty Boys in '94 WCW, how novel that was at the time, when you'd have the camera, like the split screen, and because they'd be struggling to keep up with all the action. I thought, it was just a really red hot start in that regard to the match. And there was just no resting whatsoever. When we criticize the NXT matches on TakeOver for being too long, all the fat that we complain about in those matches was completely trimmed out here.
Yes.
You mentioned it was 23 minutes. That's a great length. For a fight, it used to be, a fight, it would almost be unrealistic if it went over 10 minutes.
Hell, I watched it 2 times over the last 2 days.
Yeah.
If it was a 45-minute TakeOver match, I wouldn't watch it 2 times. I enjoy the fact that I could take it in twice to get ready for the show. Yeah.
Yeah, and everything made sense.
Yeah.
Every action made sense based on what just happened. And there was no resting, and it just very, very unique with the Shield's offense. And this was kind of the, kayfabe storyline of the match, was them working together and taking one of the babyface guys out 3-on-1. And I thought that was a neat bit of storytelling. The commentators were all over it. It was easy for the audience to digest. It was good match layout in that regard.
Yeah, especially they had the one point in the match where Rollins and Moxley were, I never know what to call them now, Moxley or Ambrose, but it was Rollins and Moxley working somebody over in the ring, and Roman Reigns was just kind of walking around the ring, making sure nobody interfered with it. I thought that was a little bit of good stuff there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for the spots that really stood out for me, of course, the spear on Kane through the outside was really awesome. I'm trying to remember how that was set up. There's something where, like, I think Rollins chop blocks Kane to set it up. Like Kane and Roman were fighting on the outside. Moxley's involved too, Ambrose, whatever you want to call him. But like the whole set of it was nice, and then the spot going through the barrier and then burying him under the wreckage was cool. To give Ryback credit, he always did the double suplex spot back then, and he does it onto Ambrose and Rollins in the ring. If you're watching
Has
on the
that
YouTube
spot ever not gotten over?
Yeah.
The baby face suplexing two heels.
If you're watching on the YouTube stream, there's a screenshot on the screen right now. It's a cool move. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that move really gets over. That's cool. There's a spot where they put the table across the top rope in the corner, and I think it's Ambrose and Rollins again. They superplex Bryan off of the table where they're all standing up there, and you're like, I'm gonna like bite my nails. Is the table gonna break from all that weight on there? Because those tables aren't super strong, but they all stand up there, and like a few minutes later, Kane goes up there and he's walking on the table. That was kind of unique, I thought, even during that time period.
Yeah, that was really the only time somebody doing that comes to mind is the Benoit Sullivan finish, which I know is not something that we want to really get into on this podcast ever, but Great American Bash 96.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the finish there, but yeah, just constant action. It felt so different.
Yeah.
Like, in 2012 than what you'd been seeing in WWE the last couple of years. Whereas now we often say, this match felt like, 4 others I've seen recently.
Of course, the powerbomb spots that they became known for were, the assisted powerbomb where Reigns, is the primary guy, but he's got help from his teammates, and they throw Ryback, through the announce table. Super cool spot as always. And then, Reigns powerbombing Bryan through a table ends up being the finish. So you get the powerbomb spot there as well. But how about that fall that Seth Rollins took back on the entranceway? My God.
So we got to go back to Ryback first, and then because it'll all tie in to the bump Rollins.
Because it's those two up there, yeah.
Yeah. So Ryback's rep, I know CM Punk was pretty vocal about this, was that he was, kind of an unsafe worker at times.
Yeah. So him and Goldberg have that in common.
Oh, now stop it.
Well, you can't argue that Goldberg is an unsafe worker. He almost killed The Undertaker, my God. Ended the career of the excellence of execution.
That was, certainly a bad night at the office. But that's, hold on.
Yes.
I digress. Okay. So anyway, that was kind of a bit of the rep on Ryback. And there was this moment, I noticed it, where he like just tackles Reigns going back up the aisle. And he tackles him just like into a chair that's unfolded. And like head first into a ladder. And I know that's kind of viewed as unprofessional, but quite frankly, I liked it. It added to the illusion of it as a fight. Like it was not like this, perfectly executed thing. It was just like, that's what would happen in a fight. Like he just freaking straight up tackled the other dude head first into a ladder. And that's what would happen. And I know it probably sucks to bang your head on a ladder.
Yeah.
But give me that.
Yes, they fight up the aisle, and then you've got Seth and Ryback on that ladder, and they've got the stacked tables up there. And holy shit, I forgot about this spot, I guess, because when I watched it, I mean, there's no crash pad. I mean, that is the concrete floor beneath them, and Rollins comes off this ladder through like the 2 tables. And his head like whiplashes off the edge of one of the tables. It is freaking brutal. I mean, especially knowing what we know about head injuries. Holy crap. I mean, this is a hell of a fall. And this happens right before the finish back in the ring where Ambrose and Reigns are involved with the powerbomb on Bryan through the table, off of the turnbuckle, where Reigns does the powerbomb and pins Bryan. Kane still buried under the wreckage on the outside. So, yeah.
The thing with that bump, too, is it's Ryback just kind of yanks him off the thing, and he's like, all right, you figure it out, pal.
Yes.
The way he does it. It's not a traditional, like, throw him off the ladder and do it. I mean, he just straight yanks him off the ladder and says, yep, I hope you don't. By God, how do you learn to fall on a stack of tables?
And then, when the Shield wins and they all celebrate, there's a pretty iconic picture of them I'm going to put up on the stream here where, Ambrose he's got his tongue out. He's celebrating, and Reigns, he looks white, but he's all there. And then Ambrose has his hand around Rollins' chin, and Rollins is just loopy. He's out. And I mean, I'm sure some of that wasn't selling. It was based on the fall that he had just took, which was pretty crazy. Yeah.
I do like about the finish, Ryback rushing back to the ring to try to break up the pinfall, but not making it.
Yes, I like that too.
I thought that was a real nice touch after he had, thrown Rollins through the tables. Good touch. And the announcers put it over big.
Yeah.
The win, the Shield. Was this the best debut match in the history of the company by an act?
Oh my God. Ooh. I mean, the Owen Cena match.
I was going to say, that's actually why I mentioned it earlier, is because it came to mind. That one. But I think that this is slightly better than that.
I mean, Nakamura and Sami Zayn at TakeOver was pretty awesome. I mean, it's not main roster, but I mean, I'd have to think about it.
Fandango, WrestleMania 29. That was quite the upset.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I was Chris Jericho, I'd be so happy I was in AEW.
Yeah.
Fucking Fandango. They had him lose to Fandango at WrestleMania. Again, nice idea. Wrong guy.
Yeah. To say the least, for sure.
What were they thinking on that?
So what should we talk about the aftermath now? I'm coming out of the match because
I
I mentioned Royal Rumble. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was the best debut match in company history, for the record. So, we talk about the Shield, what goes on after this match, an outstanding 2013. They're one of the highlights. I like 2013 WWE, spoiler alert. Particularly from the summer to, and then into 2014. That's a good period at WWE. That's probably their best period of the last 10 years. Really feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like they had a lot of breakout workers coming on, and things were really on the up, but kind of didn't last. Anyway, Shield, a lot of great trios matches. There's one on SmackDown people should check out. A random June episode against Daniel Bryan, Kane, and Randy Orton. Personally, I think the best of their 2013 was a forgotten feud with the Rhodes brothers. And what a matchup this is with 2020 eyes. Dustin and Cody against Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. It was just a straight tag, no Ambrose. And they have this match at Battleground, a pay-per-view that no one bought. But it's a tremendous match. And people really need to check that out. The build with Dusty in the ring. I think I mentioned this.
Yeah, I remember that now.
When he shushed Stephanie, maybe the greatest moment in the history of the World Wrestling Federation, is she got so salty about it in the ring. I mentioned that on the show before, but I just wanted to mention it again.
Yeah.
And then, 2014, Shield has what's basically considered their masterpiece by many against the Wyatt family at the Elimination Chamber. I'll be honest, I think I like this TLC match a little better.
Man, it's close. Like you mentioned, their masterpiece. It's a great match.
It is.
I know that patron of the show, Tim, was, and he's been on the show too. He was at that one live. Raves about it, obviously being there for it. I kind of wish I would have went to it with him now. I was up there in Minneapolis, not far from Justin and myself. But boy, I don't know. I feel like I got to give that one a rewatch. Now that I've watched TLC twice in the last 24 hours, maybe if I can watch it here in the next day or two, I could answer it better. But I'd have to go with the Elimination Chamber, just gut feeling. But I don't know. We'll see. I'll text you guys in a couple of days.
Yeah, let me know. I mean, I think, yeah, if you watch TLC, the Elimination Chamber match against the Wyatt family, which was built up so well, and the Battleground tag, I think, I'd be interested to hear what our listeners feel is the best of those three matches.
TopRopeNation@gmail.com, or comment on the YouTube video. Yes.
Or, Twitter, do anything.
Twitter at
Carrier
Top Rope Nation.
pigeon, send a raven. I don't know what people do.
Steal one of Mike Tyson's pigeons, have it fly to us. Yes.
Eventually, obviously, the group does turn babyface in early 2014. Love how they squash Kane and the New Age Outlaws at WrestleMania 30. Mm-hmm. There aren't enough great matches like that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I believe that was just because they went long with that opening Hogan, Rock, and Stone Cold. I think that match was supposed to have more time.
Yeah. God bless it. God bless those guys for going long. God bless for Hogan for forgetting the name of the
Silverdome,
Superdome. He kept calling it the Silverdome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
God bless him, because that match worked so much better when it was shorter.
Yes.
Always make whatever match. I always think of the 10-man tag at WrestleMania 10 getting cut because the ladder match went long. Rick Martel was fired up about that on his shoot interview.
Oh my God.
He was livid with Shawn Michaels.
How dare these guys? Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, they have there's a lot of great matches by the WWF 2011 to 14, just saying. But at their zenith, the Shield is broken up with Rollins being the one to turn heel. This is after they beat Evolution, Triple H, Orton, and Batista, 2 straight pay-per-views in pretty dominant fashion. I feel that breakup, ill-timed, ill-executed, and kind of haunts the WWE even to today.
And they extended the run too. From what I know is that WWE wanted to break them up earlier, and the guys basically pleaded to stay together for a while longer. Wasn't Ambrose supposed to be the one to turn initially too?
I think there was some talk because, he was the one guy who people saw kind of a personality and it had some of individuality in. I'm going to get into that in a little bit, I think. But, I think he was considered. But, Meltzer, he basically had it in the notes. He said what you said, Ryan, that they were originally going to break up before WrestleMania, but the babyface turn took better than anticipated. I am shocked a little bit at that comment, not from Meltzer's perspective, but that WWE didn't think their babyface turn would take well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, especially considering what their long-term goal was.
Yeah, so, the idea was to break Reigns off as a single star. We all know this, and give him a slow ascension. This is Meltzer's words, where he would eventually replace John Cena as the company's biggest star. And then he goes on to say, but the feeling was there was a lot of life and merchandise money in the group as faces with the 3 fist salutes. The dissension angle was dropped and the turn was canceled. Obviously, though, it kind of happens out of nowhere. And Meltzer says that there was a WWE magazine article that had a short Q&A with Rollins talking about Reigns and Ambrose's former partners. So this was obviously planned. That magazine hit newsstands before the turn actually aired.
Press
Shades
time,
of Randy,
yeah.
Shades of Randy Savage winning the WrestleMania 4 tournament when WWF magazine had already spoiled it.
Boy, that had been really close to the time where they ended the WWE magazine. I mean, I don't know how much longer it went on after. They probably just got through. They didn't care. Weren't paying much attention to the magazine.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know. To be honest with you, I was shocked that it was still around when I put that in the notes.
Yeah,
just stunned.
Same.
I was like, I thought it had ended in 1996, to be quite frank.
Yeah.
But, all right. So I'll just read this one last little tidbit from Meltzer. Then I want to talk about our collective thoughts on the breakup. Okay, he talks about the Q&A with Rollins. This would lead one to believe the turn was planned sometime back, and in a sense it was, but that was from the original turn. Those with knowledge of the situation said that the 2 key angles on Raw were both last-minute decisions. Rollins' turn on Ambrose and Reigns was decided upon Sunday afternoon. There was a brief tease in the post-game show after Payback that wasn't subtle, but didn't exactly make people expect the turn either. Decision surprised a lot of people, particularly since the figuring was if someone was going to turn, it would be Ambrose, who comes across the most diabolical. Some were questioning the Rollins turn, noting that he's a spectacular flyer and stylistically that lends itself more to a face role. At the same time, the heel turn and being associated with Triple H and Randy Orton assures Rollins a continued main event level presence. As for why it was done, it was just to shake up the situation. There was more life left in the Shield, says Meltzer, and there was a lot of advertising out as far as going back to the Shield versus the Wyatts, a short-term program earlier this year that produced great matches and excitement, but things change.
Card subject to change.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the split. I don't think it was I said ill-timed, ill-executed. I didn't understand why they did it then, right as they were at their peak, and people were so behind them. And remember, the promotion was short on baby faces at that time. Daniel Bryan had just gotten hurt.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of the 3 had really demonstrated individuality before the split, which is needed, I think, before you turn. You kind of want to know a little more about the 3 people rather than just turn them when you don't know a lot about any of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my take on it. I thought they should have waited several months.
Well, okay. The thing is, I would argue back. They kind of used the breakup to start showing their individuality. Like they showed that Rollins was always kind of in for himself, that he claimed to be the architect of the Shield, and going back to people thinking that Ambrose should be the one to turn, I think time has borne out that they made the right decision with it being Rollins, just with his speaking voice is just kind of grating. And he had a pretty great 2-year run.
So is Rollins kind of at times, but
yeah.
I'm sorry, that's what I meant was Rollins had the grating voice.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was like,
yeah.
And frankly, Ambrose has kind of always been a better baby face than a heel. Not that he's probably given a proper run as a heel. But the other thing I would slap back on is, like, if you keep them together, what do you do?
Well, they go back to the Wyatts. I mean, they were saying.
Okay.
And maybe that hasn't finished. I just think, man, breaking up babyface acts, you better have another babyface ready to slide into that role. And I know the goal was Reigns. But it's funny how they screwed Reigns from the jump on that. So the plan was, they were like, all right, we'll make Rollins his top heel, Reigns the top babyface, and Ambrose will just do whatever. Well, when the crowd had two baby faces to pick from, that's not the way you want to do it. Because what ultimately happened is they kind of sided with Ambrose initially, more so than Reigns. There was at least 50-50. If you wanted to get the crowd 100% behind Reigns, you needed to have both guys turn on him. Mm-hmm. That's the correct psychology, if that's your goal. If your main goal is Roman Reigns is going to replace John Cena, we want him to be this loved babyface. Both of them needed to turn on him, because what they did is they allowed the fans to pick which babyface they wanted. And, Roman Reigns was really haunted from the start in that babyface turn, I thought, by the booking.
It's funny you say that, because they didn't help themselves even going forward with that when, they pit Reigns against Ambrose for the Rollins vacated world title, and then they end up against each other towards the end of the Royal Rumble too. And it ended up with Triple H in there.
Yeah.
I mean, they just continuously did disservice to Roman Reigns.
What a hit job that was. Remember when Triple H, alleged heel, tosses Reigns out of the match and just like does the DX cross chop to the most massive reaction ever?
Dude, this last 4 months is the first time Roman Reigns has been booked well post-Shield, to be honest. I mean,
initially it was like, okay, like if you watch his first match as a babyface, which is Randy Orton at SummerSlam, it's okay. Like, it's weird. He comes out and you don't hear the boos. But by that fall, man, they'd already bungled it huge. And I think a big part of that was, having just one guy turn and go heel and leaving two baby faces. If you wanted Reigns to be the baby face, then both of them needed to turn on him.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then long term, a few months later, you could add Rollins kind of turn on Ambrose or something if you wanted to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you could have done something like that. Yeah, when Reigns has ascended past them, if you want, quote unquote, then they feuded. Yeah, you could have done that. So I just thought the psychology was all screwed up.
I do think Rollins, though, definitely benefited from this. I mean, because I think Justin alluded to it a minute ago, he had an awesome 2014, 2015 before the knee injury. I mean, that split really elevated him. I mean, I bought in. I was a huge Rollins fan during that period. I mean, he was having great matches. The heel run worked for him. I mean, honestly, out of the split, he benefited more than anybody. And, that status that he achieved during that run is what continues to give him the status to be on the card where he is right now, when he's working his way right now, but when he's around. So
yeah, I think once he was the heel, he was booked in the manner he should have been. It probably, I think if you look back at that 15-month or whatever it was, 18-month period of heel turn to injury, if your goal is to get Seth Rollins, but I don't know what you would do differently.
Yeah.
To improve it. I mean, that was, I don't think you can pick it apart like you can with the Reigns babyface turn.
So, I mean, you look at this match in a broader perspective, 2020, looking back 8 years, and man, like I said at the top of the show, it doesn't feel like this was 8 years ago, almost a decade ago, but it was. And you look at some of the names in this match, I mean, you're talking about the biggest names in the industry. in a lot of ways now. With you got John Moxley, he was the world champion over in AEW. You got Reigns, he's the guy. You got Rollins, he's been the guy for a lot of years since then. Of course, the Daniel Bryan run that we would have not long after this. Kane, the mayor. I guess Ryback, he's gone, but you know what I mean. Like you got your big four there.
Rather have Adam West calling the shots in my hometown.
But I mean, you got your big four.
There's another old reference. By the way, we've completely alienated the 18 to 34 demo, Justin.
But I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, I think I've promoted this video with the slogan that this is kind of a match that changed the industry, because the Shield had arrived, and this may be their greatest match, like you said, Kyle, and this is what establishes them moving forward and cements their place with the Roman Reigns, with Seth Rollins, and gives Ambrose that background to eventually kind of change the wrestling world when he goes to AEW. So I mean, I think it's kind of a fascinating watch to go back and think about what has happened in the 8 years since then, and it's maybe not one people think about too much, but I really do think it's an industry changing match. So
I could easily give this 5 stars, and I don't give that very often. It's funny you mentioned multiple times 8 years ago doesn't feel like that long ago. You know what's interesting is when I was considering other December matches we could talk about, okay, I thought of Flair and Carey and Christmas in 82, if you want to go real old school. I thought of Bret Hart and Davey Boy Smith in 95.
Love that match. Yeah.
The Shawn and Hunter match in 93 from Raw. And,
03?
Yeah, 03.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did I say something else?
93.
Oh, yeah, 03. Yes, yes. Shawn and Hunter would have been interesting in 93. Yes.
Yes.
In 03 on Raw from San Antonio, the dusty finish. But, it's funny, 95 to 03. Again, it's an 8-year span, just like 2012 to today. God, so much changed in those 8 years between 95 and 03. And you look at this match now, yeah, okay, it doesn't feel like it happened yesterday. But, man, 8 years in this promotion doesn't feel like what 8 years used to feel like.
No, that is for sure. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to do these retrospective shows, guys. If you like this kind of thing where we focus on a singular match and kind of tell the story, let us know. Again, topropenation@gmail.com. Tweet us at topropenation. Join the Facebook group, Top Rope Nation Pro Wrestling Discussion. We got stuff going up every day. And if you want to hear us talk more classic wrestling, the Patreon bonus show we do, Top Rope Nation Classics, is a lot of fun. Every month, usually about 2 hours. Patreon.com/Top Rope Nation. Support the show and listen to the whole archive. There's more than 20 bonus shows over there, and a lot of them are the classics discussions. But I do think we need to do more of these on the main feed, just focusing on one singular match, because I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. I like going back and researching it and getting ready for these shows. And like I said at the top, we were all texting and we were ready to go for this one. We're going to be talking plenty of modern day pro wrestling in the weeks ahead. Like I said, we've got the TLC live post show on our YouTube page this Sunday night. So we'll have the hot takes. I would love to have anyone listening join us in the chat room live. Get involved in the show. I love to read the comments from the chat room on the air as we're recording. If you've ever listened to the podcast version of the pay-per-view post shows, you hear me doing that. Get involved. YouTube.com/TopRopeNation. Join the fun. Pour yourself an adult beverage after the show and join us late Sunday night.
Hold on. I got to say one thing about this TLC review we're going to do something that just burns my ass. Okay? And it's appropriate because I saw the commercial when I clicked on the award-winning WWE Network to watch the match we discussed tonight. They've got this TLC promo that anytime right now, if you go to watch a match or a show on the network, you're going to get this commercial for the TLC show that's coming up here on Sunday, okay? Have you guys seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys saw it when you clicked this match. I don't know if it registered with you at all, but it really registered with me for all the wrong reasons, this commercial. I hated this commercial. What do you see when you watch that commercial? It's just a bunch of random people going through tables, and it's not like a storyline or what's headlining the show, why you should buy it. It's just like, yeah, it's December, it's TLC, and you know what that means, so people are going to go through tables.
I think it's because they don't know long term anymore. Like, I think they
that's
produced that
probably
commercial months ago, probably. And
yeah, they're just like, oh, just get the old Jeff Hardy, footage out of the can. But we talked about this with Hell in a Cell, making it a themed pay-per-view rather than using the gimmick when a storyline calls for it is such a negative. So I feel the same way about TLC.
Agreed.
I think having a TLC pay-per-view is dumb.
I mean, I'm looking forward to some of the, I think it'll be in the ring. It could be a decent show. I mean, Owens and Reigns, they've had some good matches in the past. In my interview with him earlier today with Kevin, I talked about that. And,
I like the match they had at a Royal Rumble the 1 year.
2017. I talked with him about that match. And you guys will see the quotes over the weekend on Comic Book. But he talked about how that's kind of a forgotten classic and that him and Roman would talk about little intricacies of that match for months and months afterwards. And so I think they'll have a really good, I don't think Owens has a chance in hell of winning. Maybe we'll be surprised, but I think they'll have a really good match. I mean, I'm looking forward to the Universal title match and talking about it with you guys Sunday night.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see if both of those title matches, Drew and AJ, also can over-deliver enough to compensate for the very pedestrian booking that makes you not want to really watch them. Because, like, I don't think anyone expects a title change in either of them. And again, it's so tough doing 2 TLC matches on the same show.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, I mean, I hope they don't put the title on Owens only to have him lose it to Goldberg again so they can do Reigns Goldberg. WrestleMania. Poor Kevin Owens. That would not be.
You got to get this business guy. It might be time.
Anyways, guys, subscribe to the channel. Help us out. YouTube.com/Top Rope Nation. Join us live Sunday night. We'll be here for you. On the chat room, we'll be popping. We'll be ready to go. So, with that said, this has been episode 188 of Top Rope Nation. You can follow us on Twitter at Top Rope Nation. Justin's at Justin Joint. Kyle's at TRP Kyle. And I'm at Ryan Drosty. We'll see you guys next time. Have a good weekend. Enjoy TLC. We'll be talking to you afterwards.